Hello and welcome to Ask MandRproductions episode 229, the series where I answer your questions. If you have a question to answer next week's episode, leave in the comment section down below. And that was probably the fastest I've rattled off an intro. Speaking of, today's episode is sponsored by Squarespace, so thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this one, and we'll have more about them later. But of course, we have tons of questions from you guys today, starting out with Patata Pugs, who says, what are your thoughts on the recently revealed the LEGO Office set? This is fantastic and all for $120. I mean, the all-in-one package of this with 1,164 pieces and 15 minifigures. You don't see that often in a set that's $120. So very good value there. Of course, none of the minifigs seem to have any leg prints, so that's probably where they saved a little bit of money. But for a set like an office set where most of the character pants are just regular jeans and shorts or whatever, like, you don't need printed legs, so it works out really well here. And we have basically every character except for Andy, I think, was the one that I think most people would look at me like, yeah, that's missing. And I don't know if this is true or not because I haven't looked in enough detail at this set, but apparently the hole in the wall is present in this set, and if it is, the editor will put it on screen. If it's not, I'm making a fool of myself, but if that's true, then he's off at anger management classes, and that's why it's not in the set. That's pretty great. All these characters seem to have like a fun little accessory that really goes with them very nicely. Of course, Dwight with the megaphone. Ryan Howard has a cell phone. I love Stanley's pretzel and his crossword puzzles. So there's a ton of really cool Easter eggs in this set too. I say it's just things from the show that are there. Like, it's very nice. So very excited to pick this one up on release day. That'll be a definite day one buy. And it's honestly like probably my favorite non-LEGO Star Wars set for sure now. Like, you know, every time someone asks me what's their favorite non-LEGO Star Wars set in the past, there's a few that have been up there for me, like Stranger Things and Welcome to Apocalypseburg, and there's probably a couple others that are just like Space Shuttle maybe. But I think this one is going to be a clear winner from here on out for me. This is just mwah. 3/4 Stop Motion says, what minifigure do you have the most of? I am not 100% sure. At some point when I move out, I'll do a collection video and we'll know for sure. But I would imagine it's probably the 501st Trooper at this point. I mean, I have tons of regular Clone Wars Clone Troopers, regular Episode 2 Clone Troopers from 2002. I've been amassing a lot of the modern Episode 2 Clone Troopers, but singular figure that I have the most of at this point is probably by far the 501st Trooper, although there are other figures that I have plenty of as well. Bryson says, hey Ryan, I sell LEGO online and I admit sometimes I do charge a little more than what the set retailed for, like when it's retired, sold out, or on back order, but people are constantly harassing me. They say I need to lower my prices, and maybe I should, because I'm trying to trick people. I would say you're not doing that, probably. But does that take away people's responsibility? Can people not make informed purchases? Is there no freedom anymore? You are absolutely right about this. There's this really weird thing that goes on, and I'm sure it's not just in the LEGO space, but I see it a lot in the LEGO space because that's what I'm involved in the most, where people will come along and they'll tell others, like, you price this too high, or this is outrageous, or like whatever, or like, why would people buy that? And the answer of why would people buy that is it's probably the best deal that they found. But that being said, you're right, people should be making informed purchases. If you have an item listed for $100 and it's typically going for $75, chances are no one's going to buy your $100 version of that item until all of the supply of the cheaper items are gone. And so people will come along while your item is listed at 100 and be like, you're a scumbag, blah, blah, blah. But eventually your item will be the best purchase for someone there, and that's perfectly all right. Like, you've bought this item, you have the price in mind that you want to sell it for to make it worth your time, to make enough money, whatever the case is, and eventually you want to get that out of it, and that's what you should do. You should only lower your prices if you want to lower your prices, not because other people ask you to lower your prices. You're running a business, not a charity. That's exactly what LEGO's doing. Most sellers aren't trying to trick people unless you're selling fake LEGO while under the guise that it's real LEGO, or it's like those posts that are like LEGO compatible. Like, I think those are really shady. I think it should say in big bold letters, fake LEGO. But that's just me. But it's just this thing that I notice a lot where people come along and they'll see a high priced item, or even in an auction environment, they'll see an item be bid on by multiple people and it will go for above the average value of that item. There's a reason it's called the average value, by the way. They'll call it a scam. And it's like, that is literally not a scam. And so many people are consistently devaluing the word scam because it's actually an important word to use when it matters, because there are plenty of actual legitimate scams out there where people are losing money and getting nothing in return. But when someone buys a figure that's worth $10 for $20 because they bid $20 for it completely in their own free will, That's not a scam. That's just like someone bidding more than they should. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that you as a seller should do what you think is best for your business, and what's in your best interest is probably to keep your prices right where they are. If you're making money and items are selling, whatever these people messaging you, telling you to lower your prices, they're not the ones interested in buying your product, clearly, so I wouldn't listen to them. Shoot At says, do you think LEGO will replace Microfighters with other small sets like a Crab Droid with a 2/12 Trooper or two? No. They probably won't. Slacking02 says, with inflation reaching historic highs, do you think it's a good idea for LEGO to release new MIDI-SCALE ships, provide some Star Wars ships at a lower price point? They should have done this a couple years ago with the introduction of the 18 Plus line, but you bring up a really good point. Because of inflation and because of the rising prices, it is a great time, better than ever perhaps, to bring in more affordably priced iconic ships. And I'm not like, okay, so like they've done this with the TIE Fighter and the X-Wing, right? They've done the downsizing thing. But I'm talking about like, if you want a Star Destroyer, there is no way you can get a Star Destroyer unless you buy the $700 UCS Star Destroyer. And now, of course, that plays into LEGO's hand. They're selling plenty of the UCS ones. It's a great set. A lot of people like it. But they're missing out on a market of people that would buy that MIDI-SCALE Star Destroyer at $60. I'm definitely one of them. I loved the MIDI-SCALE. I've always vouched for it and asked for it to be brought back, of course, to no avail to this point. Maybe we should start a new campaign, because it's probably my favorite subline of LEGO sets. Okay, I can't say that because there's UCS, there's Battle Packs, there's some great sublines of LEGO Star Wars sets, but it's probably my favorite subline of LEGO Star Wars sets that they no longer make, right? Like the Planet sets they don't make anymore, whatever, but like the MIDI-SCALE sets, man, those had potential, and they just didn't do it long enough. They only ever did the 2 sets, so I would love to see them come in and do more now in a modern day, and unfortunately wouldn't be at that $40 price point that we saw in 2010, 2011, whatever. It would definitely be more in the $60, $70, dare I say $80 range, so that's at least what I look at it as potentially becoming. So hopefully something we can see. Definitely we saw the breadcrumbs of that with the Nebulon B frigate, and you bring up a great point with the rising prices. It's a great time to bring in those big iconic ships as really small things. And like I mentioned earlier, today's episode is sponsored by Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform where you can build a website from scratch, even if you have no coding experience. I didn't take a coding class in high school or college. Especially in high school, I chose gym class. It was a lot more fun. But you can grow your brand from scratch. I've been using Squarespace to create my very own website, badmnrvids.com, which is dedicated to showcasing some of my earliest and most terrible content. Their easy to navigate website made it simple for me to design and expand badmnrvids.com on the regular. The most recent addition to my website is a new photo gallery where I've added a range of bad photos for you to check out now. Each photo was uploaded straight to the site from my computer using Squarespace's image gallery sections. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/MandRproductions to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Seriously, start a website, get your business rolling, get your social media influence rolling. Like, the internet is the craziest thing ever, and you really should be capitalizing on that, and Squarespace is a great way to do so. But thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this one, and let's get back into the questions. Kyle says, I enjoyed your recent trip to the world's smallest LEGO store. You did a good job at the documentary style Q&A, random visitor style approach. Kind of a random idea I had too. I very much enjoyed it as well, so thank you. He said, would you possibly take this next step and maybe do seasonal LEGO travel videos to meet fans/collectors and have them show off your collections to give you a tour of their store/collection space? Dude, possibly, not necessarily on like clockwork or seasonal like you mentioned, but certainly like sporadically or whenever the opportunity presents itself. It would definitely be something very cool and unique that I would have the opportunity to do. It's like, this video that I did, I just kind of did as a one-off thing, but there's definitely some potential there, because, like, I really enjoyed hanging out with Zach for the day, and I think his brother and one of his friends was there, and, like, it was just great to hang out with them, and, like, just genuinely one of the more fun videos I've been able to film in the last year. Like, that's, like, just, whenever you get to collab with people, it's just way more fun. As much as I enjoy sitting in my room talking to the camera, it's much more engaging for me, obviously. And so I have a few people in mind that I would potentially be interested in doing this with, and I mean, it would have to be, you know, special stuff, and I'm not a fan of flying, so mostly East Coast people for now, as far as like things I would do with that style of video. But yeah, there's some real potential there for the future. For me, really, where the World's Smallest LEGO Store video came from was I found out he had a LEGO store through his Instagram post, and I was like, man, a video titled I went to the world's smallest LEGO store would do really well. And then I was like, hey, Zach, when I go to Brickworld Chicago, can I just come up after? And he's like, sure. And like, I was like, oh, this is going to be a great video. And I think it was. It's got like 200,000 views now. Pretty good. And so, yeah, I think with title ideas like that, if I have more like that, I'll do more videos like that. It's on the table. It's just I wouldn't expect them like in the next month or two, you know. It'll be next year probably. Han Solo says, could there be a new line of LEGO Indiana Jones sets coming in early 2023? Have there been any recent updates in regards to this? There are currently 4 rumored Indiana Jones sets for 2023, and I'll quickly go over them with you. Now, the biggest set of the wave is $150, and unfortunately, it's completely unknown. I think there's a good likelihood that this means this set is based on the new movie, but of course, we can't know for sure right now. The second biggest set, I believe, at $80 is the Temple of Doom with 801 pieces. It's supposed to have an Indiana Jones figure with his shirt open, Willie Scott, short round, Mola Ram, the Maharaja, and Thuggy Guard. And it's supposed to be like a temple style set. There's a lot more to it, but like that sounds pretty cool. There's also the $40 Escape from the Lost Tomb set with 600 pieces, Indiana Jones, Mario, Sala, and a mummy. So 4 figures there for a $40 set. Seems pretty cool. And to me, the most exciting one, but a surprisingly cheap one at $35, the Fighter Plane Chase. So it should have Indiana Jones with an open jacket and tie, Henry Jones Sr., and a fighter pilot. And it's supposed to include a Pilatus P2 airplane, as well as the Citroen convertible. I probably butchered those. But, like, that sounds like a really cool combo set as well. Basically, Speed Champions with an airplane. So, 4 Indiana Jones sets. Very exciting for 2023. And, of course, I already bought all the other Indiana Jones sets, so I'll have everything to do comparisons for anything they could possibly do that already exists. So very hyped about that, and I still haven't watched the Indiana Jones movies, so I'll probably get around to doing that later this year. New Pro says, do you think that once the ATT is sold out everywhere, it will be almost impossible to get for retail? I'm scared I'll miss them when they release and not get a single one. I think that what you and many others need to remember with LEGO releases is that, yes, the initial sellout and back ordering or out of stockness of a set sucks, and it's going to happen a lot with popular sets, and that is just going to be what happens. It's the status quo. Just be used to it, right? On the flip side of that, if you're on lego.com at midnight on the release of a set, you're going to be able to order the set. They have enough to last usually at least 15 minutes, which is plenty of time to make an order, if not hours after midnight, if not days. Like, it's not always like an immediate sellout. It just depends on the set, depends on how many people are ordering. There's so many variables that we can't possibly know. But what you can know is if you're there when it releases on the website, you'll get it. At least that has been my and many others' experience with regular retail sets. They're just not that hard to get if you're on the ball. That being said, if it does sell out and it's out of stock for a couple of months, which will very likely happen, yes, it will be back in stock. These aren't shoe releases, these aren't shoe drops, and I think a lot of people that are new to LEGO don't realize that sometimes, where they'll come in and they'll think, hey, if I don't get this set today, oh, it's over, I'll never get it. It does suck if you have to wait longer, I agree, but if you wait the couple months, it will be back in stock, and it will be in stock for a year, and it won't go out of stock for the most part. Like, this is, obviously, there's been exceptions to the rule with the Clone Minifig Pack and somewhat the Republic Fighter Tank, but if you look at the File First Battle Pack, that was very, very hard to get for the first 5-6 months of its availability. For the entire last year and a half, there probably hasn't been a day where you wouldn't have been able to log on to lego.com, target.com, walmart.com, Amazon, Zavvi, whatever, and just be able to order it from their websites at your fingertips, and in some cases at a 20% discount. The ATT will very likely be the same. It'll be hard to get, and then after a few months, it'll be very easy to come by, just like everything else. Landmeister says, what are your thoughts of the Justifier's $170 price tag? It seems to be a quite large ship in terms of area, but doesn't include the piece count you'd expect it to. You know, I don't know how many times we have to do the piece count thing, because it's only going to continue to happen going forward, and I really think we as a community kind of need to get past it. Piece counts in relation to the price of sets, as inflation continues, is going to continue to have a bigger gap. The gap between piece count and price of a set is going to continue to increase. Like, the gap is going to get larger as inflation continues, as time goes on. It's only natural. LEGO, for the last 10 or so years, has been able to negate this problem by creating smaller and smaller pieces. For finer details, it certainly has its advantages, but it also can't be denied that this comes with an inherent inflating of piece count. And it can be done in relatively simple, small ways as well. You have a set like the Obi-Wan's Jedi Starfighter from this summer with the stud shooters on top versus the Anakin's Jedi Starfighter from summer of 2018 with the stud shooters on top, right? The stud shooter assembly and the stud at the front are the exact same number of pieces. However, with the tile that holds the stud shooter down, underneath that tile on Anakin Starfighter is nothing extra, and on the Obi-Wan Starfighter now, on each side there are 2 additional 1x1 plates underneath that tile to help hold down the stud shooter. So that's an extra 4 pieces on the set. I know it's not a lot, it's just one small example of how they can kind of sneak in some small pieces here and there to help increase the piece count of a set. And I think the Justifier is pretty obvious why it's so much compared to its piece count. It's very large. It uses a lot more large pieces. If instead of a 10 by 10 panel, they used 5 2 by 10 plates, like, obviously you're using 5 times the pieces for the exact same thing, and to consumers that care about price per piece, all of a sudden it looks good on paper, but realistically it's the exact same thing and it doesn't matter. So I hope you see my point. I've tried to make this point a lot in videos because I kind of get a little bit tired of seeing the price per piece thing brought up with literally every set, because it's just going to continue to be worse because they can't continue to make smaller and smaller pieces forever. I suppose to bring it full circle to the actual question you asked, what do I think of the Justifier's $170 price tag? Is it justified, you might ask? It seems fine to me. Now, I obviously haven't built the set yet as of recording this video, but there either is a review out now, it'll be out in the next day or two, and obviously in that video I'll go a little bit more in depth on whether or not I think it's worth $170. But just from like the pictures, dude, it's probably not too far off from being worth the money. I mean, the Millennium Falcon in 2018 was $170, and this isn't as many pieces, but it's about the same size. I do think, you know, an extra minifigure or 2 goes a long way in sets like these, and this is kind of missing that. I think it's only got 5 minifigs with Toto 360, who's really not a minifig, but like, it's equivalent to me in this case, especially as it's a singular mold custom for this set only. But the issue of price will never go away, and the reality is some people are fine with the $170, some people aren't, and you know, vote obviously with your wallet, wait for a sale. Some of these more expensive sets lately haven't been going on sale very often though, but I think I've spent a little bit too much time talking about the price of the set. If you think it's worth it, you think it's worth it. If you don't, you don't. Judging it by the piece count, it's not worth the $170, but I'll have to see what I think when I have in hand. Angel Lara says, Ryan, do you consider light bricks or other lighting elements that aren't official LEGO to be bad like Lepin, or is it more like buying unofficial stickers? I was working on a TIE Advanced mock and wanted to add some lighting to the interior. So, no, I don't consider them to be bad at all. Of course, at the end of the day, it's your collection. You can do what you want. You should do what you want. I shouldn't have to tell you can, right? But, like, if you want to bring in fake LEGO pieces, Lepin LEGO pieces for yours, doesn't hurt me, although I would tell you I think that's bad. But, like, especially lighting pieces, obviously LEGO doesn't make their own, like, with the wires and everything. It's very acceptable. Like, LEGO conventions, people use them all the time. Looks beautiful. People do World of Lights, which obviously all use mostly unofficial LEGO lighting kits to create that. And so it's obviously very accepted in the mock building space. I say go for it 100%. There's no reason not to. It's your own build. Do what you want, and don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. Masik F says, how UCS Razor Crest will impact standard Razor Crest sales in your opinion? This one comes up a lot, and it's one of the things that I think is always interesting to look at from LEGO's perspective, and I kind of wonder what they think about it, because I don't think they've ever talked about this sort of thing. But certainly having a UCS set and in multiple versions of a different ship would in some way affect the sales of the other version of that ship negatively, because it's a market that will have some crossover, you know, Venn diagram. You can have some people that are going to buy both, but ultimately, you know, some people are only going to buy the $100 version, some people are only going to buy the $800 version, but some people that would have bought the $800 version if they didn't have any choice are going to go and buy the $100 version instead. Of course, LEGO would probably make more money if they had bought the $800 version, so you see my point there. But at the end of the day, I think they sell enough of both for it not to matter, and of course, obviously with sets like this UCS Millennium Falcon coexisting with multiple Millennium Falcons on shelves during its lifetime, it seems to be just fine. It seems to be something that they are very okay with doing and should be okay with doing, because there should be multiple options for consumers out there. Ultimately, though, I think the standard Razor Crest is retiring at the end of this year, so there will only be a couple months of overlap as far as the sales go for these sets. It's generally just a completely different, like, beast, right? When a set's $600 versus $100, just rough numbers, right? Like, you're just getting 2 different types of people that are probably going to be interested in buying those sets, and so I don't think it impacts sales as much as people would probably think, but maybe I'm wrong too, I don't know. Luke says, can we expect a Stormtrooper battle pack from Kenobi with the red and black Stormtroopers, or can we get the Trooper in a future set? The Purge Troopers, they're amazing, they look so cool. They got not a ton of use in Kenobi, but if there's a season 2 of Kenobi, of course, I would hope to see more of it, but can we expect it? Probably not. Do we all probably want it? Yes. If I were a betting man, and I am, I would bet that they wouldn't put it in any set in the next like 2 years. I just don't expect it. I'm sorry. I would love to see it, but unfortunately when it comes to cool stuff like that, they've just kind of skipped over some things in years past. Dryden Voss comes to mind. That was like the main bad guy of Solo, I think, and like we never got a Dryden Voss minifigure in any way, shape, or form. It's really unfortunate. And so, especially for a minifigure that would need its own custom mold for a helmet, I think, unless you could use maybe one of the Airborne Trooper helmets. I think they're too different, though. Knockoff says, should DC LEGO fans start campaigning for LEGO to make more DC sets? If so, how can we do this? Well, step one, you're going to need more fans. Step two, you're going to need a way to organize them. So, good luck. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird. DC, I think, is only getting one set this year, and it's a really bad, like, little, motorcycle Harley Quinn Batman set. There might be a big D2C Batman set coming out later this year. I guess they did have all the Batman sets come out not too long ago, back in November of last year, but DC seems to be the type of theme that's not as, like, in the forefront of LEGO's mind, or even the consumer's mind, as obviously Marvel superheroes, LEGO Star Wars, LEGO City, LEGO Friends, LEGO Ninjago, etc. It quite simply probably just isn't as popular, and that's probably why there aren't a ton of sets every year. Trickshot Bros wants to know what's the best set to buy under $30 right now, and there's certainly some very good options out there with the Dark Trooper Attack. That one's actually going up in price. I need to make a video talking about that one, but that one's going to go to $35. The 501st Battle Pack, I think the Obi-Wan Kenobi's Jedi Starfighter is definitely in contention for best set under $30. Snowtrooper Battle Pack, a little bit overpriced, but maybe in that conversation as well. But ultimately, I think right now, with everything that's going on, the Mandalorian, obviously, the Dark Trooper Attack is probably where I'd put my money for most people for what the best set to buy is. Of course, if you're a prequel fan, you can never go wrong with the 501st Battle Pack, although I think most people at this point have it. But Obi-Wan Kenobi's Jedi Starfighter or the Dark Trooper set, one or the other are going to be very, very good for you depending on what you're looking for. Dark Trooper more display, Obi-Wan Kenobi more kids play, or just if you really want that Kaminoan minifigure. But yeah, two very good sets under $30. That is it for this Ask MandR, guys. If you did enjoy, make sure you hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, and you can ask me a question for next week's episode in the comments section below. Check out my 2022 LEGO Star Wars Summer reviews on the end screen now.